Throwaway because my sister knows my main and has a habit of accidentally forwarding screenshots to group chats. The short version is in the title. My sister told me she needed space from me, then moved in with my ex. Not like 2 years later, not after they ran into each other and had some cosmic rom-com epiphany. I mean, she said the words, "I need space from you. Your energy is too much for me right now." And then packed a duffel and took it straight to his apartment. And I only found out because a mutual friend sent me a photo of her car parked in his spot with her bright yellow parking hang tag dangling like an exclamation point at the end of a sentence I never consented to write. But let me start at the beginning, because in families like mine, betrayal never shows up naked. It dresses itself in therapy words and calls its costume boundaries. I'm the oldest, the helper, the responsible one. If a therapist put a camera in our house growing up, they'd fashion me a medal out of alphabetized pill bottles and Costco receipts. Dad worked 2 jobs, long-haul trucking, and then nights at the warehouse when I hit high school. Mom's migraines were so bad she used to crawl into the closet and sob, and my sister, let's call her Tessa, learned early that tears, if used properly, can cancel a consequence in record time. I learned early that the only guaranteed outcome of any conflict was me at the sink washing the dishes. Someone had to be the bigger person, and what they really meant was me. Fast forward to my late 20s. I'm juggling a full-time job at a tiny nonprofit, Read Money Poetry, a part-time shift at the coffee shop on weekends during grant season, and the emotional calendar of our entire family. Mom's neurologist, Dad's physical therapy after he slipped on the loading dock, Tessa. I can't possibly call the dentist. They make me anxious appointments that somehow ended up on my to-do list. If I was ever the squeaky wheel, I also went and bought the grease. And then there was Aaron. 34 dimples that worked like a trapdoor to whatever remained of my common sense, makes a mean shakshuka and looks good in a beanie. Of course he did. We met at my friend's housewarming, and I, a person who doesn't believe in soulmates, thought for a second that maybe I could file paperwork to change my mind. We moved in together after a year. He was decent at chores when asked, and somehow always needed to be asked, good at being charming in front of other people, and less good at being present when a sink was backing up or my mom was on her 3rd day of nausea and I had to drive out there after work. He didn't love heavy conversations. He liked that I handled things. Guess who that benefited? Guess who it exhausted? He and Tessa got along. Too well, if you ask me, because I have that older sister scar tissue that makes me suspicious whenever charm meets opportunity. He would text her memes. Fine. He would call her to help brainstorm a birthday gift for me. Okay, that's borderline sweet. But then she'd come over and they'd get into these caffeine jitter laugh fits while I was chopping onions, and I would suddenly feel like the room had rearranged itself, and I was the extra in my own kitchen. I want to be clear, I didn't break up with Aaron because I suspected anything with Tessa. I broke up with Aaron because he told me on a Tuesday night, while eating the shakshuka I bought the groceries for, that he wasn't sure he saw himself in the dad role, ever. And children had always been a yes for me, maybe not immediately, but eventually. We had talked about it, he had said, someday. Then someday moved to never, and my heart split like wet paper. I asked if this was fear talking. He said he'd thought about it for months. Months. He watched me plan my life around a someday while he silently edited the script, so we split, civilly. He kept the apartment and bought out my half of the couch because it wouldn't fit in my old car anyway. I moved into a 1-bedroom with a wall you couldn't lean on too hard without it wobbling, and I learned how quiet the quiet is when the shape of a person you loved is still stamped into it. Here's where my sister enters stage left with her compassionate buzzwords and a face like a yoga teacher. The week after I moved, she came over with a plant I didn't ask for and a speech I didn't need. I want to be supportive, she said, looking sympathetic in a way that made me feel like a toddler, but I just can't absorb your energy right now. It's dense. I feel so dysregulated after we talk. I blinked at her. My energy. You're cycling, she said. She'd had 2 therapy sessions and a dozen Instagram reels about trauma. Suddenly she was Bikram Freud. Like, you're perseverating and I don't have the bandwidth. I love you, okay? So I need some space. Space. A word that sounds like air but is often just the oxygen thieves taking it with them. I said okay because I am good at being the bigger person, and because I am exhausted, and because somewhere between the migraines and the shakshuka, I started to believe that my feelings were the climate emergency and other people were the planet trying to survive me. I said okay, take space. I texted less. I didn't forward the meme about boundary bullies calling abuse boundaries. I cried alone instead of on her porch. A week later, she sent a single heart emoji to a text where I told her dad's physical therapy got cut by insurance. 2 weeks later, she said she couldn't make mom's neurologist appointment because she needed to prioritize rest. 3 weeks later, she told me she was checking in with her body, and it was telling her she should minimize interactions that spike cortisol. I pictured her body as a spokesperson at a press conference. On behalf of Tessa's adrenal glands, we'd like to announce a pause on sister duties. So fine, I adjusted. I learned how to twist the cap off the gallon of milk you are angry at. I forgot that some Sundays used to be for kissing. I took the plant she gave me, a snake plant, no symbolism there. And I watered it, and I didn't send her a photo when it started to brown at the edges because I didn't want to be accused of dysregulating the plant. But then the little scraps of information started to trickle in, bringing their brother pattern. First, a mutual friend, Lauren, innocent as they come, sent me a laughing react to a story Tessa posted of the most ridiculous mid-century lamp, and then texted, "Wait, isn't that Aaron's place? That backsplash." I clicked the story. The lamp was ridiculous, like something that would glare at you while charging double. Behind it, slightly out of focus, a backsplash of navy hexagon tiles that Aaron insisted on when he renovated the kitchen because he liked anything geometric. My eyes zoomed. My stomach dropped so fast it left a breadcrumb trail for my brain to follow. I told myself it must be somewhere else. Everyone has navy hex tiles these days, it's Pinterest plague. I touched my phone like it might transmit an answer. Then, on a Thursday after work, I drove past Aaron's. Because I was in the neighborhood, because I had to drop something at the UPS store across the street, because sometimes self-harm looks like taking the long way where your memory lives. And there it was. Tessa's glaring yellow parking hangtag swaying on the rearview mirror of a blue Corolla now parked in Aaron's assigned spot. The number stenciled in white right on the asphalt, visible, undeniable. He had written her name in Sharpie across the back of the tag months ago. You know how Sharpie bleeds through just enough to cast a shadow. I could see the ghost of it backward in the reflection. I took a photo because I didn't trust my eyes. I took a second because I didn't trust the first. I sat in my car and stared at my phone like it was going to either punch me or apologize. I called Tessa, straight to voicemail. I called again, straight to voicemail. I texted, "Hey, are you at Aaron S? 3 dots. Then why? That why was a masterpiece, a one-word painting of the face a child makes when you catch them with a hand in the bag and they want to debate the definition of hand. Because I drove by and saw your car in his spot, I said, and then I deleted, and I also saw your story with his backsplash in it because apparently you've lost both shame and your grip on angles, because I am to my endless detriment careful. What's going on? No reply. An hour later, my mom called. Her voice careful too and trembling. Honey, Tessa came over earlier today and mentioned that she was staying with Aaron for a bit. Staying with? She said she needed, a sigh, space. Space and space and space. Did it ever end? Ear ringing, I asked my mother what exactly Tessa said because I wanted the quote, I wanted the transcript, I wanted the evidence. She said, it's temporary, she's just. Sharing costs, apartments are expensive. She had that mold situation in her place. Remember, the mold situation was a single fuzzy blueberry she left under her bed for 3 weeks. I did the thing that people taught like me do, which is I hung up and called the person who owed me the truth, knowing full well his relationship to truth was like his relationship to the gym. Occasional, performative, and often just for the selfies. Aaron, I said when he picked up cheerful like he hadn't detonated any lives, is my sister staying with you? A pause. Hey, Jess, how are you? No, let's try that again. Is my sister staying with you? He exhaled a long breath that made me picture a cartoon balloon deflating across the room. Temporarily, he said. This is not how I wanted to talk about things. What things could possibly need talking about besides this one thing I just asked you, I said, and I surprised myself with the steel in it. Did you move my sister into our apartment? Well, it's my apartment, he said, and then said my name like a soothing word, Jess, please. Nothing happened before we broke up. One remarkable thing about betrayal is how quickly it'll try to mansplain you a calendar. I didn't ask you when it started, I said. I asked you if she's living there. Another long exhale. Yes, he said, she is, for now. For now, I repeated, tasting the words. Is she sleeping on the couch or in my old bed, Aaron? Silence, then Jess, and I laughed. It came out like something breaking clean in half. You know, she told me she needed space from me, I said. What she meant was she needed square footage in your one bedroom. We thought it would be better if we. Don't say we, I snapped. Don't you dare hide behind grammar. You and she made a choice together while telling me to take care of myself quietly. He started in on a speech about adults and move on and life's messy, hail cliché, full of grace, and I hung up on him. I sat in my car with my pulse in my teeth. Then I did what all eldest daughters who have been gaslit by she's so sensitive and don't ruin the holidays do. I prepared. I gathered my receipts, and let me tell you, the receipts were so eager. Venmo, with the casual transparency of people who think they're the protagonists in everyone's story, told me more than I needed. Utilities split with a house emoji. Groceries for our place, with a carrot. Lamp of Doom lol and two skulls. The dates told their own jokes. 3 weeks after I moved out, they were already buying our things in our home, my most recent history stamped on the air like the smell of burned toast. I turned off my car. I walked to the UPS store. I mailed a package. I did the normal thing because I am a person who can hold her own head on when the neck gives out. When I got home, I opened a wine from the back of the cabinet that tastes like regret but in a fun trench coat. I texted Tessa. I know, you didn't tell me because you wanted to make it clean by calling it a boundary instead of a betrayal. I needed you to say the sentence and you didn't. Send. No reply. The next morning, my mother called. She's saying you threatened her, Mom said, voice wobbling, at the UPS store. The what? I asked. I mailed a sweater to a Depop buyer named Quinks13. Jess, Mom said, she says you went by Aaron S. and took pictures of her car to intimidate her. She's saying the quiet part loud then, I said, and I laughed that laugh again, the two halves falling apart. Mom, she moved in with my ex. There isn't a boundary big enough to make that okay. Jess, Mom whispered, don't ruin this family. There it was, the line I grew up with dressed in different clothes. Don't ruin it, stop crying, be bigger, hold the thing together with the glue that is you, by which we mean symmetry, by which we mean silence. No, I said, and I heard the floor joists of our whole history creak. I'm not ruining anything. I'm telling the truth about what's already ruined. That Sunday, there was a family dinner. I wasn't told was an intervention until I arrived. They sat me down with a casserole and two kinds of pity, Mom's watery, Dad's beer heavy, and Tessa on the far side of the table in a shirt I recognized but didn't want to think about for too long. Aaron was not there, praise be the God of not this, but of course. Tessa did her whole speech, voice soft, hands folded, eyes performing contrition like a ballet. I never wanted to hurt you, she said. But the heart wants what it wants. Oh good, I said, we're quoting Selena Gomez about my ex-boyfriend. Do you want a ring light? She flinched like I'd thrown the casserole at her. I didn't steal him, you broke up. You're right, I said. And then you took my no longer ours and turned it into yours while telling me you didn't have the bandwidth to hear me cry about it. That's not theft of a person, it's theft of basic humanity. I have to protect my energy, she said, and there it was, the costume, the wig, the false eyelashes of virtue. I'm not responsible for your reaction. Maybe not, I said, and then I smiled in that way you do when you are fully, ferociously done. But you are responsible for your actions. My father cleared his throat. He's a good guy, he said, like we were discussing a used car. Is he? I said. He helps around your mom's, Dad added, like community service improved a felony. Mom leaned forward. Jess, honey, people end relationships, people begin new ones. It's not always about you. Of course it's not always about me, I said. I'm just the only one who has to mop it all up when it becomes about me, interestingly. Tessa's eyes filled with tears. You're making this hard. You did that, I said. You made a choice, many choices, and you hid behind therapy language like a toddler behind Mom's skirt. It's manipulative. And the part that's going to stick in my throat is not that you wanted him. Have him honestly, he's an unfinished basement with a succulent, but that you stood in my living room and told me my feelings were a hazard you needed to evacuate from, because you knew where you were going next. She opened her mouth, closed it, managed. You're so dramatic, Jess. This is why I need space. There it was, the magic spell. I stood up. Take all the space, I said. Take it from now until forever. I knew boundary is this. I don't fool with people who call their betrayals boundaries. I left. My mother called as I walked down the driveway. I answered. He took the casserole, she said. I'm not hungry, I told her. You have to be the bigger person, she whispered, reflex. No, I said. I did that for 30 years. I am at capacity. In the weeks that followed, my world got both smaller and kinder. I stopped being the calendar for people who didn't pick up when my life imploded. I stopped answering texts that opened with, hey hun, quick favor, and rarely included remorse. I told Dad he could text Tessa about his appointments, and when he said he didn't want to bother her, I said, she's an adult. She chose a lot of things. She can choose responsibility too. Meanwhile, the drip of proof continued. A friend sent a photo of Tessa's brunch plate, captioned, my man's French toast is dangerously good. The hands in the photo were Aaron's, the old scar on his thumb like a comma. My cousin forwarded a registry link, just in case, for a housewarming, which included a set of hexagon coasters because God is nothing if not committed to a bit. They weren't even being careful. Or maybe they were, and I just spent so long noticing the unnoticed that of course I noticed. At some point, I realized I wasn't actually waiting for an apology. I had been waiting for acknowledgement, which is entirely different and rarer in my family than apology, which is itself rare. I wanted someone to say, oh, we did a cruel thing and tried to rename it. They didn't. So I did it myself. I wrote an email, not to them, but to myself like a letter to the court of my own life. It said, in case anyone tries to tell you differently, this thing happened, and it was as bad as it felt. It said, "You are not crazy." It said, "Even if you cried loudly, you are not a hurricane. The hurricane is other people's chaos, and you have been sandbagging it for years." It said, "You can put the sandbags down now." When Tessa finally texted, it was 3 weeks later and an echo. "I'd like to check in," she wrote. "It's important for me that we repair." I stared at the word repair like it was an IKEA bookshelf missing half the screws. Repair would imply there was an attempt to build. There had been a sledgehammer. I wrote back, "I wish you well because I am not interested in prolonging scenes with people who mistake performance for intimacy." She replied with, "Okay, if that's where you're at. I'm here if you want to share." I didn't. Aaron emailed, because of course he did, to say he hoped I could see how adult and peaceful they were trying to be about all this, and that he appreciated me not escalating. I did not reply. I forwarded the email to a folder I labeled liars and never opened again. When holidays rolled around, my mom asked me to be normal, as if normal hadn't been the superficial level we'd all floated on while the basement flooded. I said I'd stop by for coffee, nothing else. She cried. I brought pastries. We both did our best. At night sometimes, I think of the navy hexagon tiles, how pretty they are, how they always looked cold. I remember running my fingers along them when we picked them out, how I imagined our friends helping us paint the trim, how you can be building the pretty kitchen of your life and not know that someone else will be eating eggs in it while telling you you're too much. That's the thing about being the overworked one, the responsible one. People will feed on your competence until you can't stand up. They'll praise your schedule and your casseroles and your carefully worded texts, and then when you ask for decency, they'll say you're too demanding. They will write a story where you're the villain because you refuse to narrate their hero arc anymore. So this is me narrating the part they never let me say out loud. My sister didn't need space. She needed my ex's address. She didn't set a boundary. She built a pathway out of my trust and walked it to his door. My family doesn't hate me. They hate the mess of truth. And I'm done being the mop. If you're reading this and you're about to type a comment about how love is messy and no one owes anyone anything, save it. I'm not asking for permission. I'm remembering that I too am a person worthy of uncomplicated kindness. I too am allowed to say no thank you to people who move the furniture in the room and then tell me I bumped into it. And yes, I am proud of myself for saving the Venmo screenshots, but not because I want to drag them in front of a jury. It's because sometimes the only witness you'll ever get is yourself. Last week, I bought a new lamp. It's hideous in a way that delights me. It throws light sideways and makes the wall wobble glow. I look at it and think, this is mine, loud, awkward, obviously not trying to appeal to anyone else's taste. I put it next to the couch that fits in my new place, the place where no one has ever told me my grief was a hazard, where the plant finally perked up because it turns out it needed less water, not more. Space, sometimes, when it's yours, is a gift. When it's stolen from you and then sold back with a heart emoji, it's a con. I'm learning the difference. I'm learning that love without loyalty feels like I'm always auditioning. I don't go to auditions anymore. I light my ridiculous lamp. I answer to myself. I put my own name on my own hang tag and park wherever I want. And when my sister's number flashes on my phone and my chest tightens with the instinct to smooth it all over, I think of navy tiles and I choose not to answer. I choose to sit still. I choose to believe me.